Okay, we want to continue our discussion of money that we've been doing now, and we want to talk about interest rates and monetary policy. Before we talk about monetary policy, we have to talk about interest rates and how they're formulated. And to do this, we have to understand basically people have two reasons to hold money. The first reason they have to hold money is obviously to conduct transactions, to buy the loaf of bread, the gallon of milk, to purchase a book, to buy the course that you're taking here at Wilmington University. And the second reason that they demand money is to be able to purchase assets, stocks, bonds, corporate bonds, government bonds, what have you. And we have to understand that when we have bonds, we're going to assume for one minute that our assets, our wealth, if you will, can only be held in one of two ways. You can either hold it in money, in cash, or you can hold it in assets, or a combination of both of them. But to keep things simplistic, we're going to say that there is no other asset to keep, like a vintage car or a Rembrandt painting or what have you. Okay, so we have here that there's a negative relationship between the interest rate and the bond prices. And by inversely or negative relationship means that if the interest rate goes up, the price of the bond goes down. If converse to that, if the interest rate is low, the price of the bond will be high. We'll talk about that in a few seconds. So therefore, let's assume that you have a $1,000 bond. You go out and purchase a $1,000 bond from the government. The government tells you that for each year that you hold this $1,000, the government is going to pay you $50 for interest, for being a good person, if you will. That's what it's going to give you. No matter what happens, it will give you $50, and that represents $5. So therefore, if we wanted to put this into equation format, we could say the amount of the price of that the bond pays, the price that the bond pays divided by the price of the bond. This is the amount of the price that the bond will pay, $50, divided by the price of the bond is equal to your interest rate. So therefore, $50 you're getting each year divided by 1,000, which is the face value of the bond or the bond price, and that provides you with 5%. So that's not a bad deal, but let's assume for a moment that in the economy, interest rates are going higher and higher and higher, and in our economy they are now paying 7.5%. Well, your bond really doesn't look too attractive at this particular point because you're only getting 5%, and therefore you want 7.5%. So in order to get somebody to buy this bond and give up 7.5%, you're going to have to lower the price that you will accept for the bond. And therefore, by simply using this equation, we can say $50 divided by X is equal to 7.5%. So in solving for X, we would say that I would have to sell you this bond instead of for $1,000, which was what I bought it at. I have to sell it to you for $667 in order to allow you to get 7.5% on that money. Subsequent to that, let's assume that the economy is that the interest rates are falling as they are right now. And in our economy, the interest rate is only 2.5%. My bond looks pretty good. So now I have people wanting to buy my bond. And therefore, I can charge a premium amount. If you want to buy my bond at 5% and I'm only going to get 2.5%, you have to give me more than what the bond is worth. So in this case, $50 divided by X is equal to 2.5%. So solving for X, $50, you have to give me $2,000. So therefore, in this case, the interest rate went up, the price of the bond went down. In this case, the interest rate went down, the price of the bond went up. So we can see how this inverse relationship or negative relationship works. Now let's take a look at it a little bit more visually on a graph. We have our money supply. In any particular day, our money supply is fixed, meaning that we cannot there's only a certain amount of cash and demand deposits today. as of September the 30th, if you will. Today, there's only X amount of money in circulation today, and this money demand is the accumulation of our transaction or assets demand. At the point where they intersect is R star, is the interest rate. But we have to take a look at why this is the only interest rate that matters. At high rates of interest, why isn't it H sub R for high interest? Well, in this situation, because interest rates are so high, I have more money in my pocket than I demand. Because interest rates are so high, I'm losing out. The opportunity cost I'm losing out is on this high interest rate. So therefore, because of this, the money supply is greater than my demand for money. I have $50 in my pocket, but I really only want 10 because of the high interest rate. So therefore, I decide, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy bonds. And therefore, this drives up the price of the bond, and therefore, the interest rate decreases. Subsequent to that, at low rates of interest, well, now it's silly for me to demand demand this because to keep this much money in my pocket. So therefore, the money supply, the demand for money is greater than the money supply, and therefore I want to sell bonds, which drives the price of the bonds down and the interest rates up. So this gives you an idea of how interest rates work. Again, any problems, place them on the discussion board. Thank you very much. Have a good day.